Welcome to Guns, Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. I visited the National World War I Museum and Memorial, and in particular went for the War Remains VR experience that toured the country and is settled at the museum in Kansas City. I have been to the museum once before, but it was at a point before I owned any firearms. For those who don't know, War Remains is a VR experience meant to give just the briefest glimpse and understanding of what it was like to be in a trench in the First World War, in the meat grinder that was the Western Front. Dan Carlin, host of the Hardcore History podcast that takes a deep dive into historic events, was heavily involved in its conception and execution. He provides the narration for this VR experience, which lasts around 15 minutes. Though it varies person to person depending on how quickly you walk through some areas. You are fitted with a VR headset, headphones, and a satchel to hold the equipment so you can walk around freely. They built a facsimile trench that you walk through, including props that are actually in place that you can touch, though they aren't configured to interact with the VR headset, since you don't have hand controls or gloves with sensors. This means you can feel something move in front of you, but it is stationary in your vision. Though short, it is very well done and a highlight of the whole museum. There are lots of details in the experience with death, destruction, and events going on all around you for the entire duration. I know I could go through it again and see things I missed the first time. You can buy it and experience it at home if you have a VR setup. However, if you get the chance, I highly recommend going to visit it in person. Not only do you get to walk through the set they created, feeling the walls of the trench, or a locket held out in a dead man's hand, for example. They also use fans and actually vibrate the floor beneath you to enhance the experience. As for the museum itself, you cross a glass bridge over a field of poppies to enter. It is laid out as a large circle, with the first half going from 1914 to 1917, including representations that they built of typical German, French, and British trenches, where you can peek your head in and hear narration related to the experience.
After impact, our observers are trained to distinguish.
Though the Western Front is largely the focus, they do not neglect the other portions of the conflict. They have exhibits and placards detailing other parts of the war as well, including naval warfare, aerial combat, and the Flying Aces. I wonder whatever happened to that guy. The Gallipoli campaign, the Japanese in the Pacific, and of course, the Eastern Front. Halfway through the circle, at the midpoint of the museum, there is a video that essentially details America getting involved in the war, broadcast over another recreation of a muddy path with soldiers and debris strewn about. The second half of the museum has a large focus on the role America played in the conflict and how it eventually ended. As one would suspect and hope, there is a nice collection of firearms as well, including lots of machine guns, with some duplicates and variants of the same models, including a nice MP-18 and even a tank Gewehr. They have a large variety of rifles, pistols, and bayonets as well, spaced throughout the museum. Oh, I own that. Oh, I own one of those. That too. Oh, yep, that one there. Yeah, a variant of that. One of those. Yep. Oh yeah, that one too. In addition to the trenches, they also built an example of a large shell hole that is rather impressive, mimicking the devastation from one of the larger German artillery shells. Their collection also includes a Renault tank, a French 75, and a variety of other small artillery pieces that are spread throughout the museum. They have what are called reflection rooms, where you can listen to speeches, songs, poems, and other bits of audio related to the conflict, as well as some interactive tables that are lit up, which you have to have the right stylus to use, which is relevant because they were still disabled due to COVID when I went. But there was only one sign at the end, so everyone was just pressing the tables with their fingers, confused about why they weren't responding. Museums are difficult because there's so much information available, so you have to be broad and brief about a lot of things in order to get proper coverage of events. A lot of it is surface level, and if you are going as a firearms enthusiast, there's not much there that you can't learn from your basic coffee table big book of firearms or a YouTube channel like yours truly, other than a chance to see these things in person. That's the reality, but that's not a criticism of the museum, as there is a lot being presented here. There is a detailed timeline of events from the start of the war to the end of the war, all sorts of uniforms, helmets, armor, gas masks. There are maps. There are walls of propaganda posters going to the ceiling. There are stats and figures with accompanying graphs and pictorial representations. There is a large display of trench art made from shells and bullets. There are unit badges, individual stories of heroism and unique experiences. There are pieces of hardtack that I'm sure are just as delicious now as they were over 100 years ago. There are quotes from, just everyday German veterans that probably are not historically relevant in any other way. If you go through and look at everything and read every bit of information, you will be there for several hours, not even counting going through the audio in the reflection rooms. In addition to the main museum, they also have some smaller exhibits that do change out periodically, and there is a memorial tower that you can go in that gives you a nice view of the city. In conclusion, I would highly recommend this to anyone with an interest in history or firearms. I think the historical nature of firearms is one of the things that makes them so interesting and why I like to collect them. And visiting this museum can also help put it into perspective and give you a greater appreciation for your own collection. In talking to staff at the museum, the War Remains VR experience may end up being there permanently, but they are still figuring it out. There is a chance it will only be there for a limited time, and if you go to the museum, I would definitely say it's worth the extra price. The museum as a whole was a really great experience, other than the dad I kept somehow ending up standing next to several times as he passed on FUD lore with incorrect facts about firearms and combat to the next generation of little fudlings. I don't want to embarrass the guy in front of his kids, but come on. Maybe my failure to correct it was my own mistake. Should I have said something? Anyways, anyone who has had a chance to visit, what did you think of the museum? Has anyone tried War Remains, even on a home VR set? Let me know how it was in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks for watching.